Hey guys, welcome back to the Traveling Swiss. Alexis here today. If you are new here, I am from the US and together with my Swiss husband, we make all kinds of videos about traveling and living in Switzerland. So in today's video, it's a topic that I think can give anxiety to a lot of people, and my goal is to make it seem a little bit less scary and just give you information that you need that maybe you didn't know about. So it is tax season, and if you are like myself, if you are an American living in Switzerland, an expat, an immigrant in Switzerland, tax is going to be a little bit nuanced. And I had sat down with the tax expert and he was so gracious to let me interview him, and I learned a lot. I'll be sharing clips of that interview and just giving you some of my tips of things you should really consider when you are doing taxes to hopefully demystify the whole thing. Okay, so starting with some Switzerland tax basics, some things that I think are just going to be helpful, the basics that you need to know, kind of like tax 101. Taxes in Switzerland are due in March. You can file for extensions, but they are due earlier than they are due in the United States, which is important to know. In the United States, they are due in April 15th if you live in the US. If you live in Switzerland or anywhere abroad, you get an automatic 2-month extension to file the United States taxes to June 15th. If you're not ready to file your taxes, you need some more time, you can postpone the date. So you can postpone it kind of all the way up until October, November, December for both countries. But that does not mean that you have an extension on paying any tax if you owe money back. That just means it's an extension on filing. So interest will be collected in the interim if you postpone filing the taxes. Second thing to know when you're filing taxes in Switzerland is the location you're filing taxes for the previous year depends on where you lived on December 31st. So you could have lived in one canton for the entire year. It's where you lived the last day of the previous year. That is where you will be filing taxes. Now, this is something that's unique to Switzerland and a little bit different is you need to know your filing status. In Switzerland, you need to register yourself as being self-employed if that's indeed what you are. And to do that, you need to show that you have income coming truly from multiple different sources and you're not reliant really on any one client or project. There are some other unique situations like the situation I myself am in. So I am an employee of a United States company. I work remotely in Switzerland. So my status is an employee of a non-taxable entity, meaning my employer is not responsible for Swiss taxes. I myself personally am, but my employer does not need to pay into the Swiss system because they are not operate outside of Switzerland. So there's some interesting things to know, which I did not know. That actually got me in a little bit of a sticky situation when we were filing taxes last year, where Louis and myself got lots and lots and lots of questions from the authorities in Zurich when we were living in Zurich about my status, because I wasn't aware of a lot of this. It's worked out now, but we ultimately did need to go to a tax advisor. So you'll see in the interview clips, I do think it's really important to consider them because there's so many little nuances. So hopefully this video gives you the information you need before kind of seeking further insight from them. Another important thing to know, and again, I speak a lot about the United States situation because I know one, a lot of my audience is from the United States, but two, I personally am from the United States. That's what I could speak on most eloquently. If you live abroad in Switzerland or Europe or anywhere and you're American, you need to file something called an FBAR. This is a report of bank accounts that you have abroad. You're not taxed on this, but it's information collecting in the United States to make sure that you're not hiding wealth, things like that. So if you have more than an aggregate of the equivalent of 10,000 US dollars in overseas bank accounts, you need to file an FBAR with the United States, but it's something you need to do. You can be subject to a pretty hefty penalty if you don't do it. This is something I didn't actually know existed, so hopefully this helps you know that this is something that you just need to do. The next thing that is unique in Switzerland is you actually pay tax if you are affiliated with a religion. So I thought this was really unique. It's not super expensive, but it can be a few $100s a year. So if you want to be affiliated with a religious group, if you want to be affiliated officially as being Catholic, different religions, you will need to pay a tax in Switzerland to officially be affiliated with that particular group. That's something that was inherently different to me as an American because there's a official separation between religious and governmental organizations, but here you do pay a tax to be affiliated with a religious group. Something else to know in Switzerland is that if you are a B permit holder, that's what I myself am, and on this visa you are taxed at the source, meaning you need to pay taxes as you're receiving the income. This is quite common in other countries. In the United States, you get taxed as you're receiving money, but in Switzerland, all of the Swiss people do not get taxed as they are receiving income. they pay it at the end when they are filing their taxes, but you need to be paying taxes at the source. So this is why if you are self-employed, it is important to go to a tax advisor because you should be paying tax as you go. So if you're earning it from multiple sources and the tax is not being withheld, you should be paying in as you go. There are some exemptions to this, but again, important to consult. So in this next section, I'm gonna talk through a lot of questions I actually got from you guys. So I surveyed you on YouTube and on Instagram, and these are the ones that I actually walk through in depth with the tax expert from TaxPerts. So I'll weave in those interview clips as we go. So let's get right into the interview.
My name is Selim Bucher. I'm the founder of TaxPerts. We are a tax advisory firm that is based in the German-speaking region of Switzerland. We offer tax services to individuals, mainly expats living and working in Switzerland. And we also have a strong focus on US taxpayers that are relocating to Switzerland because we are able to offer Swiss and US tax services.
So the first big question that you all had asked was, can I file these taxes myself? And while the answer is, of course, physically, yes, you can file the taxes yourself. I did so last year. I'm telling you from my personal experience that the more complicated your tax situation gets, the less likely I recommend that you file it yourself. So when I lived in the United States and I had earned all of my income from one employer and I had a few investments, it was very easy for me to just file my taxes independently. I got a little too confident, and last year I did the same, where I was living in Switzerland. I had an employer that was based in the United States. I also had income coming in from social media and some different revenue streams, as well as some investments, and I had still tried to file it myself. I thought I had done so mostly correctly, but then I'd gotten a litany of questions from the tax authorities in Zurich. They kept coming, so it got confusing to work through. Ultimately, we had to go to a tax advisor anyway. So while you can, let's listen to what the tax experts think about when it's reasonable for you to file independently and when maybe there are benefits to filing with a professional.
Yeah, so filing on your own is, I would say, possible and doable if you have a connection just to one jurisdiction. Let's say you live and work in the US, you have a domestic employer, you receive a W-2, you have maybe a few investments that you need to report in your US return. So that can be done usually by the taxpayer, him or herself. But as soon as then there's a second jurisdictions involved, the tax system in that jurisdiction is different and the tax treatment of certain elements are not the same. As an example, if you relocate to Switzerland and all of a sudden you no longer have a US employer but a Swiss employer, then the question comes up, what do I do with my pension fund? Because oftentimes the pension fund contributions that are made by the employer become taxable in the US, whereas in the US, pension fund contributions made into a 401k by a US employer are not taxable. So that's already like a big difference. And oftentimes taxpayers are not aware of that. And if it's not reported, then there may be penalties, late interest charges. Or if you all of a sudden have a foreign bank account, so a non-US bank account, you open a Swiss account, your salary gets paid there, you might have some additional reporting requirements in the US. And if you do not fulfill those, then there may be severe penalties that you have to pay in the US. So these are mainly the reasons why it is usually wise to engage with a tax advisor who can navigate you not only through one of the jurisdictions, so not only through the Swiss system, but also then through the US system. Essentially also then at the end of the day to avoid that there is a double taxation.
A lot of you asked, is the feasibility of working remotely, are there any implications you need to know? And the reason you all are asking this is in this new digital world, a lot of you are not necessarily tied to a physical location. So I know a lot of people have work from anywhere August. Some of you do it in the summer where you will work kind of wherever you want for the entire summer. And more it's getting increasingly common that people are doing so overseas from where their employer is located. And of course, with that, there can be some tax situations. So let's listen to what the expert has to say on if you want to live and work in Switzerland for a short period of time.
Yeah, so if someone comes to Switzerland for a temporary period of time and performs a gainful activity from Switzerland, there's several compliance requirements that should be reviewed before coming to Switzerland and start to work remotely. The first topic is always immigration and the work authorization. Am I allowed to work in Switzerland without having a residence in Switzerland. So that's something very important to clarify that before the person comes to Switzerland. And then the second point is the taxes, of course. Do I have to pay taxes when I come to Switzerland and work for an extended period of time in Switzerland? And here the regulation, or depending on whether the person is employed or self-employed, for which entities or employer the person is working, in which country that employer is domiciled, what type of activity is performed. So there, that usually like affects the taxability of the income. There are circumstances where there is no tax due in Switzerland, but there's also circumstances where there is a tax due on the income that is earned through the period while working in Switzerland. The third topic is Social Security, because if you generate income in Switzerland, normally you have to pay Social Security contributions. Now the question arises, if you are not a resident of the country, do you still have to pay Social Security? And also here, it depends a bit on from where you're coming from. Do you come from an European country? Do you come from a country where Switzerland has a Social Security agreement with? Or do you come from a country where Switzerland does not have a Social Security agreement with? So these are the determining factors to then find out or determine whether you have to pay Social Security in Switzerland or not. So there is not a generic answer that can be given. That's why it is usually very important to have these questions clarified with a professional advisor before you decide to then relocate to that country for an extended period of time or just like for a couple of months.
Okay, the next question a lot of you had is, I live in Switzerland and I have a side hustle, or I have side hustles. So I'm earning income from social media. I'm earning income from selling things on Etsy. I have my own small business, or I'm thinking about starting one. What do I need to consider? Because I'm not officially self-employed. I do have a job. So what do I need to know about that?
Yes, so I mean, as you said, if you're a B permit holder, you are subject to tax at source from your employment income, and whether or not you have to file a tax return in Switzerland depends a bit on the level of your income. So first, it's very important to determine, do I have to file a tax return in Switzerland as a B permit holder? Yes or no? And the magic threshold is 120,000 Swiss francs. So if your annual gross compensation is 120,000 Swiss francs or more, that usually triggers a mandatory tax return filing obligation. If you are below that threshold, then you don't need to necessarily file a tax return. But there may be reasons when you still have to file a return even though you're below. And that is if you have other income or assets that are not subject to tax at source withholding, but that are taxable in Switzerland. And as an example, this may be the side hustle from your social media activity. And in this case, you would need to proactively inform the tax authorities that you have additional income that was not taxed at source, but that is taxable in Switzerland. So there you need to make a step forward and say, I have additional income, I want to file a tax return. And then you can report your self-employment income that you receive from your social media activity in your tax return. The question, of course, is if your side hustle is very minimal, if that can be considered as self-employment activity or if it can be considered as a hobby or leisure activity. Because there is a fundamental difference in the taxation, because normally if it can be classified as a hobby, then the income would not need to be reported to be taxable. So oftentimes the tax authorities, they accept that if the income is minimal. But of course, if the income becomes more substantial, the more followers you have, the more revenue you generate, the tax authorities have an interest in classifying you as a self-employed individual for this kind of activity. That would then not only trigger a income tax liability, but potentially also a social security liability in Switzerland.
Okay, and the next question is, okay, I want to file my taxes. Maybe it's the first year I'm doing this abroad. What do I need to submit? What is the process of filing taxes? What information do I need? I don't even really know where to get started. What do I need to have?
Yeah, so when working with us, we trying to apply like a harmonized approach. That means when the tax season comes and the tax return needs to be filed, we send our clients a tax questionnaire. It's a combined questionnaire for the Swiss and the US tax return that will help the client to gather the relevant information and documentation that we need to prepare the tax return. We also have an online portal, so the client can upload the completed tax questionnaire and all the tax documents and does not need to send us anything via email or postal mail. So everything is electronic. We will then review the documentation. If there's any information missing from a Swiss or US perspective, we send one email asking for the missing information. So the client will receive one email asking for the missing information from a US and from a Swiss perspective. Once we have complete information, we simultaneously prepare the tax returns. Once they're prepared, we upload them back to the portal and send the client a notification with instructions on how the Swiss and the US tax return can be submitted. So for the client, it really feels like he has done the work once and not twice. So if he had to work with two advisors, he had to upload information twice, provide information twice. So with us, it's basically like he has to go through the pain only once rather than twice.
Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching this. I know this was a different type of video, but I wanted to make this because I found taxes to be such a source of anxiety and confusion and stress for me as someone from another country living abroad in Switzerland. And I was hoping that I could, at the very least, comfort you in knowing that there are other people that are in your situation. Someone maybe you watch on YouTube that has also made some tax mistakes here, and it's gonna work out. You'll get it resolved. And two, seeking an advisor is really approachable and easier than you think if you need help. And three, maybe you just learned something that you didn't know that just ticked a box in your head saying, I need to file an FBAR or I can file an extension. So hopefully you got some information. Again, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Of course, everything you learned in this video is educational only. While I showcase an interview with a tax expert, this is not about your particular situation. So if you have questions, do seek out that help yourself. Don't take anything you hear in this video as applying to you specifically, but do take it educationally and directionally. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know what else you'd like to see in the comments. We're happy to make those videos for you. If you're gonna seek out tax consultation services, I will have all of that information in the description. But best of luck in tax season. You're gonna get through it, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys. Hey guys, thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
If you want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe. See you soon.